Welcome to Designs by Diane. Today we're going to make tracks. Bear tracks, that is. Come along and let's get busy quilting. The tools we'll need today to make this project include your sewing machine and all the tools for general sewing. We're going to need our rotary cutter and our mat so that we can cut our material. I have two colors of material. Now I chose this green and this beige. You can use any two colors. It works very well with a high contrast, so you want a really dark and a really light. It doesn't matter what colors, but you want a good contrast to it. The point of the bear paw block is to make the half square triangles come to a point. You don't want to sew them to where you blunt them, and you don't want to sew too far out where they float, so we're going to work on that today. We'll also need our rulers and our mat. I have regular rulers and mats, but I have this one special one that I want to share with you today. This ruler right here will cut half square triangles from the same width strip that you cut your blocks. So it saves you a lot of cutting and a lot of wasted material. And I'll show you how to use this ruler today, and it's very, very nice. There are several brands out there, so just find the brand that you want. But read about it and make sure it's going to do what you want it to do before you purchase it. We'll need pins, we'll need scissors, and let's get busy. This is the block that we're going, the quilt top that we're going to make. It's made of 4 bear paw blocks. Now in these blocks, the large piece right here is going to be a finished 12 inches. Each one of these smaller blocks, the toes and the corner pieces, and also the center of the lattice, will be a finished 6 inches. So we know that we have to add an extra ½ inch for our scant 1/4 inch seam width. So we will cut this large green pad of the paw a 12½ inch square. These solid squares right here will be 6½. This lattice work will be 6½ wide, and we will do it the length of that block. When we work on these blocks, we need to make sure we have our scant 1/4 inch correct. I want to remind you how to check that. You want to take 2 strips of material that are 2½ inches wide, and be very careful when you cut these and make sure they're accurate. You take the 2 pieces 2½ inches wide, put them right sides together, and sew them about 12 inches or so at what you think is your scant 1/4 inch seam. Take them to the ironing board, set that seam, open it out, iron it flat, and measure it. You had 2 2½ inch pieces, which is a total of 5 inches before you sew it together. You should have only lost a ½ inch as you seamed it. So it should be 4½ inches when you finish and you iron it. If it is not, you need to adjust the width of your seam and make sure you get this right before we go any further. I want to remind you how to prepare your material for cutting. Take a piece of material, a yard or so. You don't want so much that it's going to be cumbersome. And you want to hold it up with the selvages at the top even. Now the selvages are the part that has the writing. It may have some writing at the top or holes. It's where it was connected to the machinery. You want to take it and hold it up by the selvages and make sure it hangs straight. If you see a blousiness down there, you need to slide it left or right at the top until you get that blousiness out of it. If you have creases in your material that are giving you problems, flatten your material out and iron just the creases out. Don't iron a crease in. And then come back and work with it again. So you want to hold it up, make sure it's hanging straight. Then lay it down this way. Hand press all the wrinkles out. Bring the bottom up to the top. An even distance across here. You want to make sure it's even there. You don't care about this side over here. This can be uneven. That's fine. When you get it ready to cut, take a ruler that's got at least 6 inches on the bottom side. Get the bottom even with the bottom of the fabric and make sure all of your edges are sticking out over here, and then cut them off. That will give you a square edge. Now when you get ready to cut, you want to take your material and put it on your cutting mat and rotate the mat without touching the material. You've got that edge squared up and you don't want to adjust those pieces of material anymore. And then roll it out and start cutting what you're going to need for the quilt. I've cut out the main pieces of the quilt center. I wanted to go ahead and get those ready so we can get busy sewing. I knew that the pad of the bear paw would be 12.5 inches square. I need 4 of those, the large green in the center. I need 4 of those, so I went ahead and cut 4 of those. I set them to the side. I'm going to need, for each of these toes, I needed half beige and half green. So I took my 6.5 inches wide strips of the green and the beige and put them facing each other. When I cut my triangles out, they are already facing each other, good sides together, ready to be sewn together. So as you get better and better with your cutting and you feel like you can do more layers at a time, you go ahead and put your pieces facing together, cut several at a time, and it will save you time. These blocks right here, the solid blocks, will be a 6.5 inch square. These blocks that are half green and half beige are cut with that special ruler I told you about, and when you get them done, they will be 6.5 inches square, a finished 6 inch. I have cut my lattice work here, which is going to be a finished 18 inches because you have this block and your 12-inch large block. So we know it'll be a finished 18 inches, so we can cut it 18.5 and go ahead and have that done. I'll need one finished 6-inch green square here. Now that's all we can cut out at this time, because when we get the quilt top, the center together, we need to actually measure how wide and how tall it is before we start putting our borders on. Sometimes the quilt will wind up a little bit off from what it should be mathematically, so you want to actually measure the center of the quilt top up and down and then sideways to find out the size of it for those borders. So we will cut those at that time.